couple of days ago, Cara Kane posted a tweet and a story from the Irish News saying that the GAA is clamping down and will sanction those involved in competitive games for players under the age of 12, particularly impact on blitzes, no keeping scores at games, no semi-finals or finals, no cups allowed. And he had the full story. And then obviously there's been a massive reaction to this. It has been a big topic of conversation over the last couple of days. I'm delighted to say Irish Times columnist Jen Hogan is with us in studio, and on the line we have Paraic McDonald, the GAA development coach. You're both very welcome, and you've both been talking about this. I might start with you, Jen. You've written about this before. What was the experience that you found from parents of kids when the kids were involved in sport that was competitive or super competitive or mildly competitive at an underage level?
Yeah, I mean, I got a huge response to a piece that I did a few months ago talking about this, and parents got in touch to say that their children had dropped out of sports, I suppose, altogether, had felt completely excluded, humiliated, terribly upset on the sidelines, and they were really concerned, I suppose, about keeping them involved in sport. And some of them tried to talk to coaches, some of them tried to talk to clubs. It wasn't very well received. I mean, it wasn't just coming from clubs; it was coming from parents sometimes on the sidelines too. Some of the aggression and some of the negativity that the kids were experiencing. But this whole idea of maybe token involvement as well, having children kind of involved on a kind of tokenistic level, where they got on the pitch for a couple of minutes, a box was ticked, and that was it, and the child was supposed to be happy. And it was because parents said it was more important to the coaches to win than to include all the children and get all the children involved, and they were very much focused on the win, forgetting that it was about children.
Why do you think there was such a big response?
I suppose because so many people could relate to it, and everybody had a story. There, even within families, there was lots of parents came back and they said they had maybe one child who was really good at sport, and he or she got to leapfrog, that practice of jumping over an age group and got the opportunity to do that, versus a sibling who was left on the sidelines or who was humiliated because a big brother or a big sister came in and took a place on their team, and they didn't get to play.
They were on the two sides of the leapfrogging.
Yeah, so they got to see it firsthand. And when you see the kind of negativity that it has, or that their parents felt that they actually even had to pull their children out of sports for their own protection, or you had kids there was one parent wrote, and she said that her son vomited the night before. He was so distressed. He had gone to all the training sessions, but when match day came around, it was much more important to win. So what the coach termed to be the best players were put on. Instead, he didn't get to play. He still got his medal, but that kind of thing of going into school the next day, everybody knowing he didn't play, in spite of turning up and in spite of training and in spite of being part of the team and doing his absolute best, it wasn't good enough for the coach. The win was more important.
Paraic, what's your understanding of why the Go Games exists within the GAA?
Good morning. Yeah, the Go Games are probably one of the initiatives in the GAA that I feel has worked very well, but probably in about 12 to 15 years now, in varying degrees and varying counties. I think Dublin was probably one of the early adopters of it. And basically the Go Games came in for a reason that up till then, kids were playing in sort of adult structures and adults, competition structures and adult game structures. For instance, probably you were playing 15-a-side at under 10, you were playing on a big pitch, you were playing in big goals with a big heavy size 4 football, and Go Games sort of were brought in as a sort of child-friendly and with a couple of key principles like full participation, inclusion, child-appropriate sized pitches, child-appropriate sized goals. So, for instance, at under 8, you're playing 7-a-side on a small pitch that maybe 60 metres by 30 metres. The Go Games footballs and slitters were brought in, so first touch football for under 8 is a lot less threatening when you're hit with it than, would say, a size 4. And again, I suppose a big change over the last 20, 25 years would have been kids are starting sort of organised sport at a lot earlier age. So back when I was playing, I think my first game would have been at under 12. Now you have kids coming into clubs at 4 and 5. So we had to meet that demand with appropriate sized structures and appropriate sized games for them.
They're called Go Games because everybody's supposed to get a go.
Yeah, so no subs, everybody plays, and as I said, at under 8 it's 7-a-side, at under 9 it can move up to 9-a-side, at under 11 it's 11-a-side, at under 12 it's 13-a-side, and it's only then when you hit youth, which is under 13 and above, that you're into what we would class as sort of traditional GAA, where bigger pitches, 15 aside, and a size 4 ball, moving on to a size 5 ball later on than that, and then subs on the line, and the competitive element sort of becomes a little bit more sort of focused on then.
Maurice Brosnan's got a good piece in the Examiner today where he talks about the annual report this year and how in the annual report it was kind of flagged that they were going to start taking action on this, that there'd been observances of the principles being breached. Is that your understanding, Paraic? Is that what we're seeing around the country, that we're kind of backsliding a bit to more competitive structures?
I suppose anecdotally you hear sort of certain tournaments and certain blitzes where it is competitive, and might have been cups on offer and knockout games and stuff like that. I also know the flip side of that, where I've been involved in blitzes myself, which is purely participation. And I think at the end of the day, blitzes, I think that some people are reading into this that blitzes are gone or blitzes can't be held. I think participation blitzes can and will be held in this. It's just that there won't be knockouts, there won't be semi-finals, there won't be finals, that everybody goes, everybody gets the same amount of games. It can be structured in a way that can, you're playing against clubs or teams the same sort of size as yours or ability-wise. So for instance, when you do get under 12 in Dublin, certainly it is graded. It's semi-graded at under 11, where you've teams at A stream, B stream, C stream, and you can have underage blitzes, and you can invite teams, and you can have it targeted at a B stream or a C stream, so that everybody is treated equal. And I think that's the big thing in Go Games: everybody's treated equal. It's inclusive, and it's full participation.
Jen, this story is obviously again news this week because of Carol Kane's piece about the GAA, but it's not specific to GAA, is it?
No, it's not specific to GAA, and I actually spoke to parents even last night ahead of coming on today, and I did ask them. It is a big problem in soccer as well, and that one is particularly mentioned. Rugby seem to get glowing reports for the most part. They seem to be very aware of inclusion, and most of the reports that came back on children involved in rugby, the parents had great things to say. But soccer, it's a big issue there, and I mean, anybody who's ever been on the sideline will see that. They'll see sometimes coaches completely forgetting that this is children that we're talking about, the same children who are on the sideline, always being subbed, even with the rolling subs, the same kid going on and off, and it's something that, I mean, parents are hugely aware of, but the children themselves are also hugely aware of.
Yeah, like the children aren't taken.
They're not stupid. No. And when you look at Norway, for example, 93% of children play sports in Norway, and they have no competitive sports at all under the age of 13, which is so, and they've obviously a huge or very successful elite athletes later in life, and that moves over into adulthood, where you have high participation in adults. If we continue kind of down the road of kind of turning a blind eye to this kind of competition and children being excluded, then we risk starving them, I suppose, and robbing them of the lifelong benefits that go hand in hand with sports. But it isn't GAA, but it is mostly GAA that I hear about. It is mostly GAA that it comes back to. It's usually the parents getting in touch saying that this kind of practice is going on. It's supposed to be for the community. Everybody doesn't feel involved in the community. It seems to depend really on how good you are, and it comes down to that.
Okay, so I realise you've given us facts and figures, but for your opinion, why is it? What is it?
What is it about the competition?
What is it about the ego of these parents?
I think it's maybe they're reliving their youth. Maybe that's what they want, or they want to see themselves as this wonderful manager, and bask in the glory of success. And I mean, look, we're inherently, I suppose, there's a degree of competitiveness in us all. Everybody likes to win. Children like to win too, but it's more about fun, and it should always be about fun. And I suppose the goal should always be about keeping as many included and as many playing for as long as possible. That should be the goal. But I think when it comes to grown-ups, they forget they're dealing with children. And I've seen, only last week as a parent, I was on the sideline and I saw incredible behaviour. It wasn't my coach, I'll have to say our coach is deadly, but I did see incredible behaviour on the sidelines, and it was hard to believe that the coach was roaring at kids the way he was roaring at kids, and it moves over then onto the pitch, and you see it with the children. They're picking up on this vibe, so it's a really important thing that it is reined in, and that the parents do realise this is kids, this is children, it's about fun, it's about keeping as many involved for as long as possible.
What's the answer on that then? I know we sat at a panel before. Antonio Montero was in here, who is involved in the Silent Sidelines initiative, where you literally, parents can't say anything, coaches can't say anything except for little words of advice here and there. Like, is that the only way forward, do you reckon?
It's a bit depressing if you think you have
I know,
to go that way. If that's the only solution. But if the adults can't behave, there's merit in that. If you're encouraging a team along, that's great, as long as you know that you're remembering to encourage the whole team, and there's not blame being apportioned to a young child who misses a shot. That we're not seeing that sort of thing. You'd like to think that kind of positive comments can come, and if the adults can be grown up enough to remember to support properly. But like what I witnessed last week, and what parents are reporting to me that they're witnessing, is they're actually hearing abuse of players, like kids. They're kids, and that's the thing that I can never get my head around. And I'm going to sidelines and on the side of pitches for years and years and years at this stage. And when I hear these stories coming in from parents, it's all so familiar. So the idea of silent sidelines, it's not appealing. It might be like that kind of ban, for parents. It might make them wise up. Maybe if they introduced it for a short while and got parents to wise up a bit, and then we could get back to supporting our children, as we should be able to. I mean, these problems are being created by the grown-ups, not by the kids. Except it does filter on then, and the children pick up on it. They think this is an acceptable way to behave, and maybe they're not so kind to their teammates.
Yeah, Paraic, again, just from an instinct level, what's your view? And is it good that this has happened this week, because actually it starts the conversation and we get to draw out people's views and opinions, and you can calmly have a conversation about it?
Absolutely, yeah. I think it's no harm that we look at structures and we look at why we do things and why things are in place. I believe there's a big part of this is education. I think part of it is club philosophies and what clubs are about. And I believe most clubs are child-centred, child-friendly. I think most clubs want to keep as many players involved in their club and participating and bringing them all the way through into minor and into adulthood. I think that can only be done by stuff like the Go Games ethos and everybody getting a chance and everybody been developed. And the education piece is, understanding of development rates and understanding of stuff like relative age effect and understanding not every kid is developed by under 12. And, in fact, in my experience, very few of them are developed. There's still a lot to do in their development in terms of technical, tactical, physical, mental. So, education from a coach's point of view, GAA player pathway came in there a couple of years ago, and it was a big change in terms of some of the player pathways that went before. This one had some core philosophies, and included in that was, quality coaching, connecting kids to their teams, connecting kids to their clubs, being inclusive. And that tagline, I think somebody mentioned earlier there, as many as possible for as long as possible. And I think once, clubs have a sound development philosophy, the one that jumps out, I think that everybody would know from a GAA point of view, would be Nemo Rangers, where Nemo Rangers don't have it as a badge of honour that they're not interested in winning underage competitions or underage leagues, that it's about development for them. It's about bringing as many kids through to minor and into adult. And I still think they're to have a philosophy like that in a club and a very sort of public philosophy, I think is an example for a lot of clubs to follow.
Is that relative age effect report that you mentioned? Is that the decision making from the GAA as to why it's under 12s for Go Games and not say under 10s or under 14s?
No, I don't think that's relative age effect. I think that's more that you have your. I suppose there's a big drop off going from primary to secondary school, and I think that's one of the keys that. To be, in primary school, where that corresponds to the Go Games. There is, a lot of work been done coming in one school. A lot of GAA clubs going into the local schools. I think participation rates are very high. I think the fall off is after that when they go into youth sport and into, let's say, secondary schools. And I think the challenge is when we get out of Go Games and into that, how can we keep more kids involved at youth sport? All the way through into adult.
I haven't seen the full text of the letter, but my understanding is that the whole point of this is like to try and put up guardrails so that everybody sticks within the guardrails by and large. But I don't think anybody says you can't have occasional one-off blitzes. It's the fact that it will become a regular thing where trophies and leagues and inter-club rivalry becomes more important than actually getting more people to play more often. That's my understanding, at least, of a Paraic. I don't know if that's correct or not.
I suppose I'm sort of more knowledgeable about the Dublin setup because I've been working in Dublin GAA circles for a while now. I think by and large clubs are doing a very good job in terms of participation. In terms of, I think the Dublin leagues serve teams and clubs very well. You know, you've two codes. You have hurling football, lady football, camogie. It's week on, week off. But over the course of a year, I suppose you get somewhere between 20 to 25 games in total. And on top of that, you layer in the trips away and the challenge matches and these blitzes. So I think the blitzes are fine once they're participation blitzes. I do think by and large, I think, you know, unfortunately, this has come to a head at the moment because it's only one or two coaches, one or two overexcited parents on the sideline that brought this to a head. And it's no harm every now and again just to stand back and examine it and maybe just re-emphasize what's important and why we're doing it and what the outcomes that we're looking for, which is as many kids as possible for as long as possible.
Yeah, fair enough. This story is not going to go away.
No, it's not going to go away. I mean, like I said, I asked parents last night about what was happening or what their experience was just a few months on from writing the last time, and it was the same huge response. Parents getting in touch, but hopefully it'll mean, I mean, the fact that it's back in the public eye again, hopefully it will mean that we will see the policy being followed and kids being involved and nobody feeling that they're always on the sideline and excluded, and that they feel that they have a place within sports.
All right, we'll leave it there. Jen Hogan and Paraic McDonald, thank you both very much for your views this morning.